hearty welcome to all the members who have joined us today for this session, the MBA Avenue Getting In and Getting Ready. This is organized by the Alumni Cell, Department of Economics, Indraprastha College for Women, University of Delhi. With immense pleasure, I welcome Ms. Urja Seth, the speaker for today's session. She completed her graduation from Indraprastha College for Women, Department of Economics, and scored rank 1 among the 63 students of her batch. Further, she Faculty of Management with the Dean's Honor Roll and was also nominated for the OP Jindal Scholarship. In addition to this, she has an amazing experience in marketing field. She has worked as a marketing intern at Nearby, where she contributed in acquiring 10,000 new customers and in reaching out to 1 billion people. She has also worked as a marketing intern at Nestle India, and she was the only sales and marketing intern to get a pre. She is currently working as an area sales manager at Nestle India. During the session, if the audience has any questions, they are free to switch on their mics and ask them, or they can put it in the chat box and they will be addressed by the speaker accordingly. I would request the audience to switch on their cameras. It would be great.
Thank you. Thanks, Shruti, for the introduction. I'm personally requesting whoever is comfortable, please share your cameras on so we can see each other. Of course, these are difficult times. We're all in the middle of a pandemic, and whatever connection or good conversations we can have here, I would be great to know each one of you and your experiences and answer questions which you guys might have. So, personal request. Please feel comfortable to switch your cameras on if that's okay.
Hello, Urja ma'am. Ma'am, this side Deepika.
Hi,
Am I
Deepika. Yes, you're audible.
so, ma'am? Just want to know that how did you go in that highly prestigious company? I mean, how was your journey?
Sure, definitely. I believe Shruti has a segue planned into it. We have a structure. I would be very, very glad to answer your question, Deepika, but let's hold on to it for a little while. And till then, if possible, please switch your camera on so I can see your lovely face.
Request the audience to please switch on their cameras. Yeah, so now without any further ado, let's start the session. So, Ms. Urja, although we have moved towards this online interaction during these uncertain times, but we'd still like to ask you, how are you feeling to return to your alma mater, even if it's through these means?
I think it definitely feels very good in my interactions with Gargi so far as very expressly said that this is a great initiative. I personally applaud having a platform as such, representing dedicatedly the economics department. Having known my batchmates, I can speak for so many people who've had diverse experiences since we've left college. And back in our times, we did not have a platform as such to get in touch with with our seniors, with our alumni, and gain from their experiences or get whatever information was possible. So kudos to you guys for having me here, for inviting me. It's a privilege. Besides that, of course, this brings back a lot of memories, be it at the Tila when I was in Abhivyakti, or the kind of social representation and understanding that Enactus gave me as a platform, and more so representing here the economics batch of 2018 and the department definitely feels great.
That sounds great. Okay, so Urja, I have a question. You have been a brilliant student and stood at the first position in economic honors, right? So, how was this switch from economics to MBA?
Okay, so I get asked this a lot. Very frankly, I always wanted to pursue the business management route in my career. I like ever since I had joined economics, even before that in school, it was very clear to me that this is what I wanted to do. Um, However, of course, understanding the subject as well, and it was of course something which was very interesting to me, economics as the core, and having professors such as Kamlesh ma'am back then, or Saha ma'am, it was very I would say enriching to be in a course like economics. However, I feel that what most people do not understand as clearly, maybe people who've not, of course, had this kind of journey, which is a shift from economics to a business administration sort of a career path, is how interlinked economics actually is to business. Even today, I go back to a lot of concepts. I go back to macroeconomics. I go back to microeconomics because it is not just relevant within the domain and field, however, impact so much value across disciplines. People who are studying political science need to know how much economy impacts relationships globally. People who are studying business need to know how central economics is, and of course, finance is to international business, or even to something as small as your own enterprise. So while a lot of people believe that this is sort of a divergence from the core domain, I genuinely feel that it was the right stepping stone for me to take before my business degree.
Okay, so even I am an MBA aspirant, so I am also willing to give this CAT exam this year. Okay,
Okay,
so
great.
please, yeah. So I'll like this webinar will be very helpful for me, and I think for many of us here. So please tell us about your journey starting from IPCW, doing a bachelor's in economics in IPCW, and then landing into a renowned company like Nestle.
All right. So, I mean, of course, I'll be very brief here to not waste the valuable time. While at IP, I had a very enriching experience. It was a change of environment for me. I came from a co-ed school to a girls' college, and I'm sure a lot of you would have faced that change. However, I am a very strong, person to say, in my opinion, that this was a very crucial experience for me. Um, Having said that, my journey at IP was, like I mentioned, from representing the Dramatic Society for the college to in Actors, and having read economics in the 3 years. I wrote CAT in 2017. It was definitely very difficult to manage, studying as well as giving the exam, and not breaking down under the stress that SEM3 exams are a week away. So that's how it went for me. I'm sure that's how it will be for a lot of you. You guys will be writing CAT in the middle of your degree, of course. Post that, I had the great opportunity to interview with some of the most renowned and well-known colleges in India, and taking our professors' recommendations on the back of it. Which, to be very frank with you, whichever college I've interviewed with, be it I'm Bangalore, be it I'm Lucknow, or even FMS, they know our professors very well, and that was one of the talking points I had in my interview. So know that your professors at college are immensely valuable in the industry, and they will be the first people you should reach out to, whatever your aspirations may be. Post that, of course, I had multiple options I had, but I chose to go the FMS route. Again, many people have different opinions, and of course, mine is just one amongst many. And my journey at FMS was nothing short of the word, grueling, because it's a very hectic experience, especially when you join MBA. In the first 3 months, it's extremely taxing, and you have to adjust to a very high pressure environment. So that was a very drastic shift from undergraduation to post graduation. At FMS, initially, to be honest with you, I thought that I would pursue something in the finance domain. I was very interested in venture capital industry. I was very interested in maybe knowing some bits of the fintech or the more payments led associations and ventures that are coming up. For example, it was one of my dreams to work for Mastercard. However, I feel the marketing society at FMS was something that changed my mind a lot. um, when you join a business degree, you get exposure to a lot of different domains. Finance is one of them, of course, and marketing is the other. But besides that, you get to know a lot about supply chain. You get to know a lot about human resources, and within all of those exposures, I felt that my experience and my calling lied within the marketing domain. And before my summers, I was very, very clear that this is where I wanted to have some of my experience in. And once I have interned, within the brand or marketing domain, that's when I'll decide what is it that I want to, pursue further. And within the brand and marketing space, of course, there are multiple industries that you can work with, and FMCG or fast-moving consumer goods is just one of them, which I felt gave an extremely, wholesome overview of business in general while keeping branding at the center. And hence, companies like Nestle, companies like P&G, companies like Reckitt Benckiser or Colgate, all of these are consumer product companies, were something that I was personally targeting. And I'm glad I had the chance to intern with Nestle. Speaking of my experience, in the couple of months that I had my internship, I was very lucky enough to be working with, the oldest brand that Nestle has in India, which was Milkmaid. Some of you might know of it, some of you might not. It's just sweetened condensed milk, which you use to make desserts. And my project was to work on a new product development. We were working on an innovation, and my experience particularly went behind working what would be the concept of the product, how would we want to introduce it or launch it to the public, what would be the launch plan, what all cities within India do I want to take my product, where does my consumer lie. And all of that was so interesting, and I feel also very aligned with economics in general, because economics at its core is about knowing what are the rational expectations of a consumer, and what are their motivations and how you would want to meet them. So that experience was truly, truly an eye opener, and that's when I decided, once I got the offer, that this is what I wanted to experience, at least for the initial years of my career. And since then, I joined Nestle last year, post finishing my degree in 2018, amidst the pandemic. And I'm sure some of you have joined within the pandemic, and it's not the most preferred experience that most of you will have, because you've not met your batchmates probably, and you're not on the ground interacting with people. So I joined Nestle that way, which was in June 2020. And of course, one advantage I had was that I'd interned in times when there was no COVID. I interacted with a lot of people on floors, and I knew how work happened. So first 5 months of so that's how the management trainee experience in short is conducted. That as a sales and marketing trainee for management and business, your experience, or your 1 year initially, is divided into a brand experience and a sales experience. So my first 5 months was dedicated for a brand understanding, knowing how a brand manager works, working on certain projects that the brand was targeting. And those 5 months, I worked with the Nestle A Plus brand. Again, just to give you a brief about it, I was working with the UHT milk segment, which is basically Tetra Pak milk, and the Chill Dairy range, which is all products like curd and yogurt, which require cool supply chain. Greccio is something which I hope some of you have tasted. It's a great flavored yogurt. And my experience was truly, truly, extremely hands-on down into business, because it's not an easy business to be in. Dairy within India, of course, has to compete with cooperatives like Amul, which sell at a mass scale. They can come down to lower cost products. So it was a very business centric role. It was a very startup type environment with the brand, which was extremely great, because I got to experience that versus also a very stable, renowned brand like Milkmaid. So I got to see two different worlds of how a brand could happen or work, and I'm sure there would be multiple other ways that brands function as well, and hoping to see that in future. So I finished my brand role in towards the end of November last year, and since then I've been working with sales within Nestle. And within sales, I again got a very diverse experience. I worked with the chill dairy sales team. Like I mentioned, we need cool supply chains, so the distributor network on ground is very, very specifically catered to chill dairy. I got an exposure into that. And then I worked with general trade, which means all of the products that you've seen, brands like Nescafe, brands like Maggie that we bring to you, Kit Kat, Munch, all of those products, how are those products reaching from a factory at Nestle to the mom and pop store, kiranas next to you, or even online. So that has been my experience so far, and I hope I've not extended this by your expectations, but that's how I would put it to take you through my journey.
Thank you so much, Urja. Your experience have been wonderful. And okay, so now we are open to questions. If anyone from the audience has any question, please switch on your mics, and I'd prefer you switching on your cameras as well. And you may go ahead.
I believe let's start with Deepika. She had a question.
Yes.
Deepika, can you repeat that question for me, please?
Yeah, Di, I was saying like, how was your journey? Uh, how did you went like in MBA and in such a big company? Like, have you taken any internship in IPCW or you just go in the MBA?
No, so my only internship I had was with Nearby, as Shruti had mentioned during the introduction, which was again a very digital specific internship. So I did not have any consumer products internship before that. I did not have any other internships to speak of. And just to, I mean, of course, right now where you guys are, I can completely understand that, it seems like the big world and big names and big brands that you can work with. But trust me, once you guys are in the degree, you will understand that it's down to making choices between something like an HUL and a Nestle, or skipping industries altogether and talking of Microsoft of the world. So I understand that it seems like a very very big thing, but trust me, all of you can get to experience that. To speak of how I landed Nestle, so the placement process at these schools is very harsh, I would say, but it's very, very exhaustive for sure. So that's how it's structured, that you have different buckets wherein different industry opportunities come together. So, for example, investment banking or core finance, private equity, venture capital roles would come first. Then you'd have something like a supply chain segment of companies. So it's all bucketed into industries that come on campus. Within that, of course, and so sort of share your preferences where do you want to intern, and that's what I've done. I had shared my list of preferences that I want to intern with FMCG, and I want to specifically work with the brand segment within FMCG, because of course FMCG also offer finance roles, they also offer supply chain roles. And so basis your preferences, basis the company's preference, there is a proper process that's conducted. To speak of Nestle, there is a round of group discussions that we all go through, and that's the same for almost all marketing roles or even finance roles that you would see in during placements. Post the group discussion, and of course your CV iterations and whatever the company feels in terms of the fit, they would decide who they want to interview as a candidate. And I went through one round of interview with a very esteemed HR within the organization and the dairy marketing head at that time. So great experience interviewing those two, and that's how I landed the internship. It was very centered on questions like why I wanted to do it, why Nestle specifically. Of course, I went and researched why I wanted to intern with Nestle, what are the brands, what I feel should be a new launch for Nestle. So things like that. It was a very good conversation, I would say, pertaining to my background. Where do I come from? What have my experiences been so far? In fact, I still remember, them asking what is my favorite economic theory. And I remember quoting Amartya Sen and his work on poverty, which I'm sure the third years here will understand what I'm talking about. So that's how it was, Deepika. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, Di, it was really appreciated. Thank you.
So we have one.
Yep.
So we have some questions in the chat box. Ma'am, how valuable is part-time MBA?
Again, I don't think I'm the best person to answer it because I've not experienced it. But there are executive part-time MBAs there is an executive MBA program that FMS particularly offers, which of course I've had the closest experience to observe. It's a great course. However, those executive part-time MBAs at FMS and colleges alike only take in people who've had experience in the industry. So they have high work ex batches, people who worked for a good amount of time, 8 to 10 years. So that's how it is. It's almost the same experience as we would have in terms of full-time MBA, but of course it's a little challenging because then people have to manage the classes along with the fact that they're working full-time, and of course 8 to 10 years into the organizations mean that they're sitting at very very important positions in the company, and their lives are not easy. So I think that if that's something that you want to go for, it's definitely a great option. And at the end of the day, I'm a strong believer that you create your own opportunities. So that's going to be my answer to that, and it's definitely a good choice if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so Shruti is asking, did you consider pursuing MBA from abroad?
Hi, Shruti. No, I did not. I was very, very determined on cracking one of the Indian B schools. So I only wrote CAT. I know I went through the interest form that you guys had shared. So there were a lot of questions regarding GMAT and pursuing MBA from abroad. Now, sitting at this stage, I sometimes feel that if I want to go back to studying, I might do a very specialized business course, abroad. But no, that's not something I had considered.
The next question we have is, could you please shed some light on your CAT preparation?
Okay, that was a long time ago. I remember I had enrolled with time in January 2017, so I had a good amount of time in terms of my preparation. Again, I know a lot of people who do not take coaching. I just was somebody who I felt that I wouldn't sit down regularly to prepare by myself, so I felt that was something that I should take. Completely personal choice. If you think you're very dedicated, which I am not, by the way, then feel free to choose the self preparation route. There are lots of resources available online, and of course, renowned books that you can take and refer as supplementary material for your preparation. So I joined time, and throughout those November was when I wrote CAT, right? Yeah. So those 10 months, my preparation was basically giving every single mock exam. Um, I felt that whatever my level of preparation was, I should not shy away from writing any mock exam. So let's say I think I joined time in the second week of January, and I wrote the first mock exam, which was there in the third week of January, to assess where I lie. So if some of you are in coaching, I know a lot of people just skip writing mocks because they feel they're not prepared. Do it. My suggestion is just go in and see where you stand, and until you give the mock exam, you will not understand the those 3 hours and how they're set up. So having that kind of systemized sort of an iteration for yourself is going to be great. Personally, my amongst the three sections, which is VRC, logical, and the and quants, of course. My strong points were VRC and quants. I knew that DILR was something that back then, in terms of trend, was something that would come up as extremely tough. So that was where I focused a lot of my preparation on. Having said that, within quants as well, I would go through a very specific strategy, which is when I would give mocks, I would try and understand within different kinds of, there's of course a very dedicated syllabus that a lot of coaching centers have come up with. So where is it that I'm not doing as well? Am I, able to crack some of the difficult questions or not? And then I would review those specific sections and take sectional exams. So with time or any other coaching center, if you guys are enrolled, they have very specific sectional examinations which are 30 minutes long, and you can take those basic, easy, moderate, or difficult level of ease. And that's what I did, which is I kept going through whatever I felt I was weak at. Having said that, I know it sounds that I was very diligent and dedicated. The first 5 months, I primarily only attended the classes. I had very strategically chosen the weekday batches because I knew, like I said, that if I did not, work on it more frequently or on a daily basis, I am somebody who would not have studied if I took the weekend batches, for example. So I would attend college and then go to my classes directly. So I think that's something that definitely helped because I was constantly in touch with the exam, with the thought that, okay, this is what I want to do and give. So till May, I would say that it was primarily going through the classes, understanding the different basics, and I would focus primarily on that and give mock exams. And post May is when I started my own self practice and assessment. That is when I started going through iterations of what are my strengths and weaknesses, which is solely something that you can determine from mock exams because these national level mock exams are given by people across the country who are targeting the exam and who will be writing the exam. So you will get a very fair assessment of where you'd lie competitively on a relative scale. So that is how my preparation was.
Hi.
So
So,
Urja, yeah, yeah, Sadhvi, go ahead.
Hi,
hi.
Sadhvi.
So, hi, Dee. So, actually, my question revolved around this topic only. So, that's why I wanted to interrupt in between. So,
Yes.
I want to know that how did you manage like economic honors? Because like we have just landed in our second year, and what we hear is that our second year is really going to be difficult. And this is something that will go until March or April. Like, I just want to know that how did you manage your economic studies as well as your CAT preparation? Because as you said that you had also opted for weekday batch to give yourself free weekends. So yeah.
I think it's a very personal call. Like I said, I assessed myself that I would not be consistent, which is why I went for the weekday classes. Managing economics primarily, see, I would be very focused during classes, and that's where most of my understanding would come from. I knew that I would not have a lot of time to dedicate outside of just my schedule because I was anyway dealing with, let's say, 6 or 7 hours of scheduled classes in a day. So that's my primary answer to you, which is focus during classes, and I think that's more than enough. I remember Kamlesh ma'am was so good at macroeconomics that just sitting through her lecture would be enough, and I would remember that concept till whatever internal assessments we would have, or even during the final examination. And I'm just somebody who tends to, even before every internal exam, I would make sure that I study something and I make sure that I understand it. Because if I did not understand it, it would be a big problem for me later. So just focus on the lectures. I think ask questions if something, not something that you're understanding straight away. And once you're clear in terms of the concept, I think in economics post concept, everything is, your understanding of it. So try and focus on learning during the class, and I think that's how I optimized my preparation. Of course, that's very easy to say, and just to share a low point as well, because I don't want to leave the impression that it was all rosy for me. One week before CAT, and then 3 days after CAT was our first exam for semester 5. Yes, for semester 5, and I had almost, and this is like 4:30 a.m. in the morning, and I started panicking that, okay, how I've not started studying for my final examinations. I have to write CAT in a week. Of course, it becomes very, very daunting, but you end up managing it. I had very good friends who would support me, and at 4 a.m. I would call them and be like, everything is going to be fine. So that's the mantra that I would say that you stick by. Give it your best shot. Don't just run through things to run through things. Don't be like, okay, I have to do 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's done. Do one wholeheartedly, understand it, and then move to the second. And that is the best approach. It's slower, but it works.
Oh, okay. Just another question. So you joined Time Hudson Lane, the one that's near.
No. I joined Jhandewalan. So central.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, so Urja, since just 2-3 months are left for CAT 2021, so would you like to give us some last moment tips?
I think last 2-3 months would be very dedicated to mock assessments. Try and give as many mocks as possible, and don't just give them once you receive how you've done, and you can see how what all you've answered correctly, what have you not answered correctly. Try and strategize in different ways. For example, within VARC, I remember just 2 months before CAT was when I started, my percentile started dropping. And then that's when I started strategizing in different ways. Like, should I attempt my, essays first? Or should I go with the more TETA questions first, the ones which, even if you get wrong, you still, don't get negative assessment. So try and strategize in different ways. In quants, you can try and strategize in the sense that, a lot of people say that it's very difficult to actually apply, which is why I always recommend giving mocks and strategizing and, utilizing different approaches. That I would first go through quant question one, question, whatever I felt was easy and I could crack within 30 seconds, I would go and move ahead. If something was, something that I was facing for the first time and I knew that I can get this, but I can get this in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I would mark it and do it later. So try different approaches. Maybe you can try an approach like, let's say, logarithms is something that you're very confident of. Go through the questions, answer logs first, or whatever concept. So there are multiple approaches which I think you should iterate and test for yourself. And mock assessment is something that I definitely recommend to everybody. And assess those mocks after you've given your approach. Try and understand what went right and what went wrong. Of course, I can speak of my experience from time. So there was a very detailed assessment, section by section, which was further divided into topics, the ease or difficulty of the questions, how much time did I take on a certain question. So I would try and bifurcate into 3 subparts, which is one question which I got right, but I was spending a lot of time on. So I would try and improvise my speed on it and see if there are other ways of solving questions like that. Then a second bucket would be questions which I got wrong. Were those of easy level of management? Were they moderate? Were they difficult? Am I fresh with the concept? Did I get something very basic wrong? So I would revise those concepts. And third was the set of questions that I left and were easy. So those were low-hanging fruits which I missed on during the exams. I would try and go through, maybe, is this a concept which I've not covered till now? So that was my approach of breaking it down and then assessing and working. So I would say have a strategy. Know that you can't do everything. That's something I understood, that I only have 60 minutes and I can't solve everything. So I would try and prioritize what worked for me. So assess where are you strong, and only once you're assessing via mock exams would you know what is it that you can crack and what is it that you can't crack, and that strategy is what eventually works. And of course, a second more psychological help that giving mocks helps you with is that you've already been through the simulation. So on the day of the exam, a lot of people lose nerves, but I was already down some 45 or 50 mocks by then. This is when I'm counting from January. So it was just another mock exam for me. So tension or stress was something that didn't really strike me during the final, shot. So that's what I would say to it. If I have not answered something because I tend to sort of lose the points, then please bring me back if I have not answered your question.
Thank you so much, Urja. So the next question we have in our chat box is, which is better career option, CFA or MBA?
There is no better, there is no worse. That is what I would say. Do what you want to do. There are 10,000 options. This is the time where you can experiment and see, what you want to do. I would, however, want to ask a question to this person who asked this question, which is, why are you confused? So what is your ultimate agenda? Do you know what you want to do? If corporate is something that you're sure of, then I would answer it very specifically tailored to you. But otherwise, if it's a very generic question, then I would say do what you want to do, which is again going to depend on what your goal is. So who asked this question again?
Divya
Hello, ma'am.
Agarwal.
It's me, Divya.
Yeah.
Hi, Divya. Yes. So what is your goal? Like, is it something you're very sure that you want to be in finance domain and work with the corporate or have your own enterprise, or like, are you sure of some sort of an ultimate objective?
Yes, like I would want to enter the corporate world, and I'm quite fascinated by the finance sector.
Okay, great. Then I would say do both. I know it sounds maniac, but a lot of my batchmates who had CFA, level 1 or level 2 cleared, it just adds on to your knowledge. It shows that you are an expert within finance. And also having, a business degree is where, management is a very central, need or a skill, I would say, or an expertise that you need these days to be in the corporate world. Of course, now again, that my answer would get bifurcated into two further, streamlines or game theory. Game three, which is one, if you're very sure that you want to be, working with a finance core company. By finance core company, I mean to say, let's say a KPMG where auditing accountancy is central, and companies like that, then stick with CFA. No need to give a business degree. But after a point in your career, what I've realized is that people prefer business resources to manage other people. So for that managerial stage is where you need expertise. And then on the second hand, if you're very sure that you want to do finance, but it works even if it's not core to the company that you're working with. For example, at Nestle, manufacturing and selling products is core. Finance is a supporting function where we have our P&L and businesses in line. It's a very important supporting function, but of course, making the product in manufacturing is what's core to the industry, right? So try and read about what you want to do, what different kinds of industries offer, and I think that would be your answer. If managerial finance is something that you're really intrigued by, then go with both. It's not as tough as it sounds. Of course, give your cat and paws that you can start working on your CFA preparations. And trust me, being economics kids, and I'm sure you would be studying financial economics, it wouldn't be as tough as it sounds. So CFA is going to be not a cakewalk, but something that's not going to be as tough.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem, Divya. Any further questions in the chat box?
Is it crucial to have some work experience along with MBA?
This is one question that I still struggle to answer for myself as well, but this is what I've, at least theorized till now. I don't think it's a make or break. Freshers who don't have any work experience are, resources that don't have biases in their mind. So when you're doing your MBA or even when you're getting recruited, everything is new and you can learn the ropes very fast. However, one advantage that definitely work experience brings on the table for any person is that they know how corporates work. Or even if they've worked on their own startup or their own enterprise, they know how business works and how people work. So whatever you're studying in your MBA becomes more relevant, or it becomes easier to relate to. For example, there are courses like corporate governance. So a structure of a company, for example, how board members work, what are the different laws, what could be different loopholes, motivations of people at different levels. All of that you will be able to better relate to if you have a work experience background, or domains like human resources, which, we would tend to sideline at times. That's a fact. However, I'm a strong believer that it's very, very important to have a strong human resource segment. You're only able to relate to those theories or whatever you're studying better when you have work experience. So that's definitely an added advantage, that all that you're studying is more relevant to you. But as a fresher, I believe even in a batch of business associates that you have, all of them come with varying experience. If you can try and talk to people and understand how their work experience was, you can always try to relate better through their experience. So network well, know your batchmates well, always be eager to know what their experiences have been. So there is no right or wrong answer. Both kinds of people you will see, and it's just what you want to do. It's just what you feel would be better for yourself. I felt going for the degree without any work experience was something that would be better for me. And my thought process back then was I want to not lose into the touch of studying. However, your perspective can be completely different. So both ways are fine. It's just what you personally prefer. Am I facing some connectivity issues? I'm not able to hear you, Shruti.
That's actually not you.
Okay. Okay, great. Just a second.
I have a question.
Yes, Vajriha, yes, tell me.
And
Yes. What makes an impressive resume for applying for
yes,
the
please
business
go ahead.
schools?
So on the CV bit, impressive, I think it's all about, you can't really make your CV in hindsight. It's about, of course, what you've done and showcasing in a very well manner, showing that you've gone through details and you have a rich experience of whatever you've done, even if it's something as small as starting an Instagram, business account for yourself. Then you just have to be very sure of what you are selling and make sure that you know the details in terms of if you're trying to ask in terms of what helps in ticking a box. I would say definitely like something that you've been very consistent with. So if you've had a very consistent academic record, that's something that I think people look out for. If you've had a very relevant work experience to what you're seeking out, or a very relevant internship to what you're seeking out, then that definitely helps. If you have a good research knowledge, if you've researched on what, let's say tomorrow you start researching on Amazon, for example, and you've written a research paper on what pricing strategies work on Amazon, or what kind of sellers uh, gain versus lose on Amazon, and you've gone through the details of it. I think these kind of things work really well. Any kind of extracurricular skills that you have, which shows team spirit, which knows that you know how to work with people and manage with people. You have multiple activities at college, so if you've participated in it, it is a very great example of team working if you're coming as a fresher. Anything that you've innovated by yourself, so it could be anything across. It just needs to be something that's relevant. It needs to be something that you've gone through knee deep, and that you know what you're talking about. It makes some business sense. You've gained some very crucial skills, be it functional skills or be it behavioral skills. Because trust me, behavioral skills are more important than functional skills at times. So that's going to be my answer. So for example, Vajra, are you involved in any on-campus group or activity?
Yes.
So what, I mean,
In
if I may ask, what are you a part of?
yes. In IPCW, I am part of alumni cell, and I am
Yep.
also the part of placement cell, eco club, and poetry and allocation club.
Okay, so great. So which means that poetry allocation means that you are somebody who is very creative. You know how to express stories very well. So that shows that you're a good communicator. You can manage to garner attention. You can, because you're allocating that poetry as well. So that's something which shows to me as a person that you're very creative. You're somebody who likes knowing people, likes telling your own stories. Whereas when you talk about alumni, it shows me that you're a very strong representative of yourself in terms of gaining connections, making sure that you have a good network of people, making sure that you add value. So you're not just working for your personal agenda, you're working for a combined community which you're representing at college. So it shows that you're a good leader. So of course you're working within a team, so you're a good team player. So things like that is what I would suggest you derive from your experiences, and that's what makes it enriching. If if something that you're a part of, and after you've done that, you can't really recall on something that you've learned, I think then that's not worth it. So that's the answer
Yes.
for you.
Now I am clear that what is all about the impressive resume. Thank you so much, ma'am.
No problem, Majiha. I will. Shruti, are you connected again?
Yes, Suzy,
Yes, Shruti.
yes. That I could get an overview about marketing profiles for that, please.
All right. So this is by Sudipti, right? So Sudipti, in terms of overview of marketing profiles, so marketing can be in any industry. So let me break it down for you. Okay. So there's, of course, let's make concentric circles, subsets. So of course there's the entire corporate world that you have. This corporate world is divided into different industries. So you'll have automobile, you will have telecommunications, you will have FMCG, you will have banking, you will have fintech. So there's multiple industries. Within every industry, you need marketing because you are eventually selling something to somebody, be it a service, be it a product, be it people or resources themselves. So marketing is a part of almost every business that you can pick in the world. So there can be different kinds of profiles. Marketing within, let's say, telecommunications, for example, what Airtel comes to campus with can be more brand strategy or growth led, which is how can you acquire more people. It could be on their newer streams of business within telecommunications, for example, OTT, over the top, which is Amazon, Airtel Extreme, all of those new OTT platforms that are coming, Amazon Prime, you have Netflix. So all those kinds of ventures, how do you market that? How do you become a more crucial, essential brand custodian? How do you get more consumers to watch your content? What kind of content goes online? So all of those profiles are there. Then within, let's say, why don't you tell me, Sudipti, what kind of industry you're interested in? I think that would help you understand a little better.
Hi Urja, I just wanted to know like what kind of profiles were offered at B School post once you're done with your MBA. Like, are they more sales oriented only, or like something different from that?
They're both. They are both. So you'll have both kind of profiles. So let's say a Vivo might, actually the same companies might offer both kinds of profiles. So you can have a Vivo coming in for brand strategy, wherein you're working on the brand essence, which is what is Vivo's purpose or value, and how do you want to communicate that, and then breaking it down into different range of Vivo phones. So you will have A series, B series, C, D series. So who are you exactly targeting with in terms of that particular series of mobile? What kind of tone type of communication should you have? So breaking it all down. So that's brand, more on the terms of brand strategy, creating brand essence. What do you want to communicate? In more FMCG, which is where I can speak of with more depth, like Nestle, you get recruited as a brand and sales professional. So for me, the next 1 year I'm going to be working in sales, and then I'm a brand resource. I will be called back to brand. So even in other FMCGs, it's similar. So the journey is structured with beginning with some sales experience, because sales is extremely crucial. If you do not know how your product goes from the factory to the end consumer, how will you as a brand manager be able to design something on the product if you don't know what kind of stages it actually goes through till reaching the end consumer? So in terms of FMCG, the more brand work is centered around the more general management profile. So at Nestle, my work would be working on my own P&L, making sure that my budgets are in line, my marketing spends are in line, I'm not overshooting on my expenditure, making sure that my stocks are, I'll be constantly in touch with the factory, with the supply chain team, to make sure that at the right time I'm having my production, at the right time all of my different centers where my products are supposed to go, my distribution centers, supply chain team is working and products reach on the right time. From there, if it's a promotion, for example, if I'm running a promotion on pack, which is come and win a visit to Disneyland, for example, but it's only active for 1 month. People can only use that promo for a month to scan and participate in the contest. So then it becomes extremely crucial that I'm in touch with the supply chain team to make sure that stock reaches to the consumer on the right time. Then, of course, with the sales team, it becomes extremely crucial for me as a brand person to make sure that all the sales teams are motivated enough, the numbers are clocking in. My planning is to sell 100 tons in Delhi. However, the sales team has only sold 30 tons. So it's very important for me to understand the sales team's perspective, what are the kind of challenges they're facing, what is the feedback they have for me, so that in future I can improve on that. And besides that, as a brand person in general, for me, it's my solid work to interact with my creative agencies, know that my ads, all my communication, be it on television, be it in print, outdoor, be it on the digital media, everything is in line with what my overall strategy for the brand is. Let's say starting today, in the next 3 years, I want to make my brand more relevant in metro cities among a specific class of consumers. So I have a particular goal in mind: by what amount do I want to grow? How many new households of people or new consumers do I want to recruit? So with that overarching objective, I will divide it into different actionables, or tactical or more strategical things that I would try to do, which can be across the board. So I will be responsible to coordinate with every single person. So in FMCG, I am the spoke of the wheel. I have to engage with all stakeholders and also make sure that the overall brand objective gets delivered. I hope that answers that, Sudipti.
Yes.
If you have any other
Yes,
interest
yes.
in
Thank
a
you so much.
specific industry, company, domain, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I can help you connect with people. Or if I know as much, I will give you an overview of that as well.
I have one more question.
Yes, Fajiha.
As you are working in Nestle, so does Nestle give you free chocolates and Maggie too?
No. Sadly, no. Of course, as employees, we get discounts in our staff shop, which is at head office. But no, I don't get any discounts, sadly. I wish I did.
Okay, so Khushi is asking, in your opinion, which option is better, going MBA after graduation or taking a gap year?
I think we've answered that, which is WorkX versus doing an MBA as a fresher. So, Khushi, if you have specific doubts, because we've been through that, then I can take it up, or else we can move to the next question.
Initially, I was planning that I could gain some experience before turning in for MBA, like sitting for the CAT or the GRE or GMAT. GMAT. So that is why I was considering that I should gain some work experience before sitting for these exams. So, which option do you think is better? Because I saw one of my cousins, she graduated from SRCC. She dropped and then she did some jobs, and now she's in Wharton right now. So that is why I wanted to ask. And my own brother, he just did it side by side, and he graduated from IIM Udaipur. So I just wanted to ask, which is better in your opinion, because I've seen both examples in my own family.
See, I think you've answered it for me yourself, which is everything is possible, and you can choose to go whichever route you prefer. Of course, when you're speaking of schools like Wharton, Harvard, INSEAD, Yale, all of them, they admit people after a certain level of work experience. So they come from a school of thought that when people have worked in the industry, they, like I said, they tend to relate with what they're studying in a much better way. So they are more engaged, they understand things a little better. If you feel for you that's the route you want to take, then I think irrespective of doing your degree from abroad or within India, that's the chance that you should have. If you feel that you're somebody who can understand concepts as well, you can engage and leverage from your batchmates' experience, and try and learn this. And I think that is also a fair option. So it's a very personal call, and I don't think any option is better than the others. So it's a very, very personal call, to be honest.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem, Khushi.
Okay, so there's one last question in the chat box. How did you manage with other management exams along with CAT exam? Like most of them fall in and around the CAT date only. So how do we go about it?
Again, I think my strategy was a very risk, very, very strong on risk strategies. I'm not risk averse in that sense. I put all my eggs in just three baskets. I gave CAT, I gave ZAT, and I gave IFT. I wasn't very keen on going to IFT either. So my approach was that I first went through the list of colleges. I noted down what was the set that I wanted to attend as as an MBA student, and that is when I trimmed down on the exams I wanted to give, because I wanted to be very focused in terms of my strategy. And amongst all three, I dedicated 90% of my time preparing only for that. since IFT and that are post CAT, that is when I started preparing for those exams. I felt that CAT would prepare me for most of the other exam preparations. So that's the strategy I took. I did not sit for campus placements. I did not interview for a single company. So I was just somebody who took the risk. I know people who are risk averse. So, I mean, it's just a strategy that you can go with. For example, I personally did not want to go to Nasi Munji. I did not want to go to Symbiosis. However, these are all great schools, but that was my personal call, which is this is the list of colleges that I want to attend. So that's what I did. With CAT, I knew the avenues were open to IIMs. I knew avenues were open to SMS. MDI was open to me via CAT. SPGen was open to me via CAT. So all of these colleges were something I wanted to attend, which is why CAT was my primary target. XLRI BM program is again very, very renowned. So that's why I gave that. And IFT, again, I was just like, okay, I should have an exam between CAT and JAL so that I don't stay out of touch in terms of preparation. So I strategized and I broke down exams. I didn't choose exams just like that. I went through the list of colleges and then broke it down to how can I minimize the number of exams I give and only have focused preparation. But again, your approach can be different. If you want to keep multiple options open, then do it that way. But try and think in the sense which exam would help you have a strong base of preparation for others, and then try and spend most of your time preparing for that and then do it. And of course, look into the timelines, which exam comes first, which exam comes later, and then you can try and strategize it that way either. So that's just what I did.
Okay, so Divya is having another question. Does participating in case study competitions help?
A major yes. It definitely helps. It helps in multiple ways. One is, of course, your own learning. All of these companies that come and open case competitions on campus, they offer relevant live business problems. So let's say I had participated in Asian Paints Canvas Challenge, and they at that time had given us a problem for the case study about their phygital journey. So they had developed an application which consumers could scan and use and see at their own homes which design they would want to prefer. So it breaks down a lot of the journey that people find taxing, meeting a person, seeing what all kinds of designs are possible, then thinking, okay, will this look nice, will this not look nice? There was no option of seeing, okay, will this wall in this color look good to me or not? So it was just an adaptation of the journey in a more digital fashion. And that was the app that they were trying to work, and they were facing the problem that there weren't enough downloads. Their dealers were not, up to date with how the app works. How can they make that journey for that consumer very, very seamless? And this is a very relevant live business problem that companies come to campus with to see how, we can offer them solutions and how we think. So I think it definitely helps in learning. That's core point number one. Point number two is most of these case competitions are linked to offers. So if that's the company that you want to target, if HUL is coming on campus and you want to work with HUL and you end up winning the case competition, then you can get a straight window to interview with the company and win, a pre-placement offer. So they're extremely important, of course, in these two aspects.
Okay, so any more questions from the audience?
Hi, Urja. So my question is, if not corporate, what other offbeat avenues open up after an MBA?
Okay, first of all, hi, Gargi. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So besides corporate, at FMS, we had a 2-year placement holiday, which means that people who have their own business ideas, they can go and try that for 2 years. If it works for them, great. If it does not work for them, it's a 2-year placement holiday, and then the 3rd year they can come back and sit for the placements with the batch. So that's a great option, which is your own enterprise or startup. You can do it right after your degree, or you can venture out. You can work with the corporate sector for some time and then work with your own enterprise. Besides that, there's obviously startups. There are so many startups doing well. You guys know about Zomato getting listed. It's in the news that Paytm will get listed very soon. So, so many startups, so much is happening in India right now. The startup culture is booming like anything. So that's one avenue that's always open. Then there's also the non-profit segment. So if you're somebody who's very, very determined about social causes, then that's something that's always open. And that's pretty much what I can think about right now. But I would say that anything is honestly possible with a business degree. You can actually anything is something that's open to you. So I mean, unless it's a very hardcore functional thing, you want to be a professor, that's also possible actually post an MBA. You can do a PhD. So I can't think of anything that's not possible, but if there's something very specific you have in mind that you want to do, feel free to ask and I can tell you if I've heard of something like that happening or not.
I think that answers my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
So we have one more question in the Khushi, go
Alright,
ahead.
Shruti, okay. I wanted to ask if holding leadership positions early on, like from the starting or something like that, does that help when you pursue MBA? Like,
I think it definitely helps. It shows to the interviewer that and this especially helps if you're a fresher. So I'll answer it in two perspectives. One is if you've had work ex and if you're a fresher. So if you're a fresher, having these kind of experiences, be it within campus or outside of campus, if you've volunteered for something like a MAD, or if you're working with any other organization per se, or if you're coincidentally working with your family business while working with the degree, it shows a lot from your side to offer, be it team skills, be it enthusiasm to learn. So that's definitely a plus. Then the second part is if you've had work experience. I think most people know that the chances of getting a managerial role before an MBA, specifically in India, I don't know if that's fortunate or unfortunate, but that's how it is. That not a lot of people get to have that chance. So they know that it's about more individual contribution role in corporates, but again within individual contributions also, inevitably you will be working in a team, and your contributions help others create social impact and value. So anything and everything helps, like I said, and it's about what you've done, how relevant it is, and what were your own learnings from that experience that actually count. And there could actually be even examples where people have had great work experiences, but they're just not able to tell that story as well in interviews. And they won't clear it, or they'll take multiple years or shorts to do it. So it's honestly about what your experience is and how you try and communicate that at your best in terms of learning.
alright, that answers. And also, what are some skills that you wish you started working on early on in your life that helped you go through, have a smooth sailing through MBA?
Patience. Patience is something I definitely wish I had. So, I mean, of course, there are different ways you can develop patience, but I won't go into that because it's a very, very grueling initial months till you get accustomed to it. Then second is just multitasking. You will have so much happening around you. You need to be a multitasker for sure. I think that's what helped me, because within college as well, I didn't only stick to studying. I was always involved in multiple things. So multitasking really helps. Balancing different things really, really helps. I think the third point is just my communication skills. I think communication skills are very important. You need to be very clear, very sharp in terms of what you're saying, and these three is what I would say that definitely helps during your MBA.
Alright, thank you so much.
Hi, Urjadi. I had a question. It's more like a personal question. As you earlier stated that you didn't sit for the campus placements, like you were very sure of appearing for CAT. So, like, what was your plan B? Like, if not CAT, then what? Because, like, frankly speaking, at this stage, we aren't very sure of what we want to pursue. So,
so I did not have a plan B. The only thing that I thought of was, so to be honest, I had a safety net that I had a merit go through at the school. So I could have pursued 1 year doing masters in eco, but I'm aware that not everybody will have that safety net. That's something that I had in mind, that I can maybe sit through the school and prepare side by side again. the second option I had was that I can always search for, a role or a job right after I know I'm not getting anything. So to me, I had figured that I can crack a role even after my degree ends, which a lot of people do, right? So that's something I felt that could come little later on. And for me, it was very important to put all my focus in my plan to sort of try and convert it. If it didn't happen, two things were on my plate, which is I could have gone for a master's for a year and see how that worked out, or the second was of course sitting for interviews and trying to have some kind of an experience. Having said that, I know that it of course brings a lot of anxiety, which is if you're not doing anything because you didn't have a plan B, but trust me, that is also fine. I know of so many people who've taken, a drop off for 8 months, 9 months, and they said, okay, I was preparing for the exam, and meanwhile I was also volunteering for this organization. So if that's something that's what you want to do, you feel that you need more time or you want to give yourself more time, that is also fine as long as you can justify. So that is what I would say to this.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's already 5:05. So due to time constraints, we won't be able to take up any more questions. Thank you so much, Urja. We are so grateful to have you with us. Wajiha, go ahead.
Okay. So I, Wajiha Imran, on behalf of Alumni Cell, Department of Economics, Indraprastha College for Women, would like to express my extreme gratitude towards Ms. Urja Seth for gracing us with her presence and enlightening us with such valuable understanding. Ma'am, today's session was extremely engaging, and now I am pretty sure the MBA aspirants present here will be more confident about the upcoming CAT exam. So we are extremely, extremely grateful to you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for today's session. And I would also like to thank our respected faculty members and all the participants who are present in this webinar for taking out time from their busy schedules and logging in. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this session. And this session was just clear out all doubts. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Shruti. Thanks, Gargi. Thank you, Vajriha, and all of you who joined in today. And of course, the faculty who I know, I placed a lot of asks, and thanks a lot for accommodating to all of them. And thank you so much for making this engaging. In case any of you have any questions, please feel free to reach out over LinkedIn. Send me a ping. That's completely fine, and I'm at your disposal. And all the best to all of you. And never feel that you are stuck in a situation. There is always a way out. And we tend to think that if things don't fall a certain way, it's just a no-no and it does not look good. But trust me, out of every situation, you can make something. So just go with a positive attitude, and I'm sure all of you will do really well. Stay in touch.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good evening. Have a good weekend.